Michelle, the floor is yours. Tell me what I can do for you to set up.
I just have a USB.
Yeah.
My name is Michelle, and I'm the librarian for political science, government publications, school community affairs, and personal field studies. So, if you're studying in any of those areas, I know you're studying in one of those areas at least, I'm your librarian. Hopefully these show up. So this morning, I'm going to talk to you about some research strategies to do with your specific projects. I'm also going to tell you a little bit about the library. And if there's any questions along the way, please just let me know. Probably some of this will be, a little bit of this will be reviewed for you if you know something about the library, but I just want to make sure we're all on the same page when we start. So I've set up a course page, and any of the links that I showed you today, including the PowerPoint after the presentation, will be posted there. And so this is just a quick bit.ly link, so bit.ly/poly322W18, and the CAPS count. So if you want to take that down, this will take you to the course page. I'll also show you how to navigate there. And I'm going to send the PowerPoint and things, and hopefully get some Google if you use it. But as I said, anything I talk about today is going to be on that page. So as I said, I'm going to just do a very short introduction to the library this morning and some of its services. And then I'm going to launch into some specific resources for this particular class and your particular assignments. Okay, so we have 3 library spaces on our 2 campuses. So Webster Library is our downtown library. It's accessible 24/7 with your student card. After 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. you need your student card to get in. And we are the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th floor of the LB building. We just finished our renovations, so there's lots of brand new spaces there for you. So we have all the standard things: computers, printers, photocopiers, scanners. Yeah.
Also to add to that list, there's a great resource that I saw with the Israel Studies building with a great amount of books for our classes.
Yes, yeah, so you have a resource center, yeah. Yeah, so what I'm going to be talking about today is very Concordia Library specific, but there are many resource centers within departments that have their own sort of small book collections, for sure. And that definitely adds to the larger book collection at Concordia Library. Concordia Library also collects books, specifically in Israel Studies. We have some funds from the Azraeli Institute, and so we do buy a lot of print books. So there's lots available. We also have the current print journals, and I say this because we always intend to have most of our journal articles available online as e-journals, but sometimes that's not possible. Either it's far too expensive, or they just don't. The company maybe only creates a print journal because it's a very small publisher. So the current 5 years of print journals is always at Webster on the 2nd floor. And then the print journal archive, anything older than 5 years, is all at the Vanier Library on the Loyola campus. Okay, so that's just so you're aware of where things sit. So the Vanier Library, much the same as Webster, it's just that the disciplines are split up where they are taught. So most of the books for the social sciences, including political science and government, are going to be at the Webster Library, whereas the Vanier Library has communications, journalism, and the sciences. There's also the Grey Nuts Reading Room, which I like to mention if you haven't discovered it yet. It's located in between St. Catherine and Randolph. It's open 9 to 9, always with your student card, only open to Concordia students because it's connected to a residence hall. But it's a converted chapel, and it is beautiful and very quiet. So there's no collections there's no books there, and you just bring your own device. So you can take out a laptop from Webster Library and bring it over to Grey Nuts. There's Wi-Fi and outlets and lots of seating. And it's a place where when Webster gets very, very hectic, it's a nice place to go that can be very quiet. Okay, so a few things about the website. The far top corner, it says login to, that's where you log in from home. So when you want to log into use our online resources, our ebooks, you need to log in there with your username and password. I like to point out the discovery search because this is the first search you see on our homepage and what exactly it does. So the discovery search includes the library catalog, which is all the ebooks and print books in the library collection, plus some of the journal article databases, but not all. There's no perfect one search. And I'm going to show you more specific, very specific journal article databases today that I think will help you for your needs in this class. But this discovery search is a good place to go if you're looking for a specific book or article. And there's also a section for undergraduates to see all of the services available. So course reserves, on the blue bar on our homepage, there's a little button that says course reserves, and this gives you access to the course textbooks. We have a course reserves room in the Webster Library that has at least one copy of every required textbook for every undergraduate course class. And you usually take those out for 3 hours. Also good to note, if you haven't noticed them, there are book scanners. There is one in the course reserve room, there's one on the 3rd floor, one on the 4th floor. You don't even need to log into these. You just need to open them up, have a USB key, and you can scan what you need from the book and save it to your key. So that means even though you only have the book for 3 hours, you can scan the chapters and move to use them. Okay. You can also log in here to find any online readings that your professor has required for your courses. So when you log in, you'll see all your courses listed if there are online readings available. So this would usually be journal articles or book chapters, things like that. Okay, so how do I find a book or an article when I already know the title? I just wanted to review this because there's a couple of ways to do it. So we have this book from 2017, Israel Facing a New Middle East. How do I know it's a book? Well, there's a couple of things telling me. I have a city in the state, Stanford, California, and I have a publisher. When you see a city and a publisher, it is not a journal article because we don't include that information in journal article citation in any citation style. So when you see this and one title, it's very likely a book. So figuring out, do we have the book? One of the strategies is to use the discovery search or the library catalog. And when you put a book title in between quotation marks, that searches the entire exact title. Now, there's a couple caveats to this. Watch your spelling, because it's searching everything that's just on the page, so if you don't have the spelling exactly right, it won't find the book. And leave out the punctuation. So if there's like question marks or exclamation marks or a colon, just leave them out. And so, Israel Facing the New Middle East, we have this book, and it says book. And you want to pay attention to the format because when you search in the discovery layer, remember I said before, it's some journal article databases and library catalog, which means there's going to be journal articles in there. And in the case of books, there will be book reviews in the journal articles about those books, which may be helpful if you want to know if you should look at the book, but just know what you're accessing. So we want the book results, and this is on the 5th floor. It says Webster 5th floor, and then gives the call number. Okay, so Israel's two states, debate, international affairs, 91. So that looks like a volume and an issue number, plus some page numbers. So we have 2 titles, a volume and an issue. This is a journal article. We can look these up in the discovery search. You will never find journal articles in the library catalog. They are not listed there. But because the discovery search searches some of our journal article databases, you can search them there. So Israel's two states debate, it's a periodical in international affairs, volume 91, issue 5, there's the page numbers, and there's a PDF available. Here's another, a different journal article. And again, I've just searched the journal article title. This one's a little bit different because it's a little hard to see, but it says find it at Concordia. So find it at Concordia is the way our databases communicate to each other. So we have over 500 databases. This is their communication tool to say which one of these databases has this particular journal article. So when you open Find It at Concordia, you get a big box pop up like this, and usually there's a green bar that says click on the links below, and you should be able to go straight to the journal article. Okay? In a perfect world, that always happens. It doesn't always work, right? When this doesn't work, there is a search for the journal in the library catalog. And remember, I just said there are no articles in the library catalog, but we list all of the journals we subscribe to in the catalog. So basically, this is the slower way in. So you could go in and you need to search the second title, so the actual title of the journal, World Policy Journal in this case. And then you would need the rest of the citation information, 2017, volume 34, number 1, to be able to drill down and find it. In most cases, you're going to find a PDF and find it before these can work. But there are those options there. So in this case, World Policy Journal, available as a PDF. Okay, now this one last one I wanted to show you. Really big and long, but sometimes you get a course outline and you're expected just to go find this stuff yourself, right? And you get a citation that looks like this. In this case, there's a couple of titles, there's some editors, there's a couple authors, and then there's that city, state, publisher. So this is something from a book, it's a chapter from a book. Okay, because we have no volume and issue, we do have some page numbers, because that's the page numbers of the particular chapter. And the reason I show this to you is because, like journal articles, book chapters do not show up in the library catalog. So you need to always search the second title, the actual book title, to see if we own the book either as an ebook or a print book. So in this case, this book is Israel and Palestine, Alternative Perspectives on Statehood, and that's the title that I'm searching. I've also switched over to the catalog. You can do that if you know it's a book. And I know in this case it's a book, so I want to see if we own it. So Israel and Palestine, Alternative Perspectives on Statehood. Here's our chapter down here. And this is available. Location, Webster, 3rd floor. It'll always tell you which library and location. And then the call number. The call number is the book's address on the shelf. This is in the D's. The D section on the 3rd floor is world history. So you guys might need to access that. The J's on the 4th floor is the political science section. So probably you'll be finding a lot of books in those two places. And when it says available, it means it's on the shelf. If there is a due date there, this means you can request the book. And there's a button that says request. I point this out because when there's a due date, it might be due in a couple of weeks, it might be due in 4 months. Because everybody has different times available to them. So an undergraduate has a shorter due date than, say, a faculty member has 4 months. But everybody's only guaranteed 2 weeks with the book. So if you see a book that you want and it's out, no matter what the due date is, you can request it. We recall the book from the person, be it another student or a faculty member or a librarian. That person has to bring it back in with a new due date. That's way less than the 4 months they took it out for, or they get a fine. Okay? So I just say this to say don't get turned away if a lot of the books you want are out. Try recalling. Yeah?
How long does it usually take to recall?
It depends when the person took the book out, so then they get a new due date. So usually, I mean, it's usually a couple, maybe a week or two. Like it won't be terribly long, but it depends because they get a new due date, and if they've only had it, say you took a book out and you've only had it for 4 days, then they would get a new due date for 2 weeks from those 4 days. If that makes sense.
You can respect that.
Yeah, because otherwise you get a fine. The fines are pretty high for recalls, so. And if you get too many fines, we cut off your account. You can't take stuff out anymore unless you pay the fines. So it's, yeah, it works. I'm not in charge of fines, but okay. So what do we do if we don't have a book? Why wouldn't we have a book? We can't have everything. There are other libraries, and sometimes, for instance, You may be looking for a book in a subject area that we don't teach in Concordia. So we don't have a law school. We have some law books, a very small section in the case, but there are 2 law schools in town with law libraries. So if you needed a book about a legal issue, probably one of the other libraries is going to have it if we didn't. So if you're looking for a book, you have a book title, you look it up, we don't have it. There are 2 ways to get it. One is Columbo. So Columbo is what you log into with your Microconcordia username and password, and it's interlibrary loans. So this allows you to request, look up, print books and e-journal articles from other libraries. So if it's an e-journal article we don't have or a print book we don't have. When you request a print book, they're delivered to Concordia, we email you, you get it for 2 weeks, you bring it back to us, we give it back to whoever gave it to us. And we get books from across Canada, it's not just Montreal. We will go fairly far actually. For the United States, I've seen books come from Europe, it really depends. This doesn't work for ebooks. So if a book has only been released as an ebook and other libraries have it and we don't, you can't borrow it from another library. But if it's an ebook that you think, why don't we have this, Michelle? I'm the one who buys books for the library, so you can let me know and I can look at it and see maybe this is something we should add for our collection. E-journal articles, if you look them up, we don't have it, and you put a request into Columbo, they're emailed directly to you from another library for free. This is very fast, 1 to 2 business days. So if we don't have the article, we don't have the book, there's always a way to get it. And so when sometimes you're off campus, maybe you're searching, especially in Google Scholar, you click on an article and it says, this will cost you $29. Don't ever pay for anything. Probably don't have to tell you that, but if you have questions about that, don't ever pay for anything because we can usually get it from somebody else for free. The other way to get books is to go in person yourself. So as Concordia students, you can get something called a BCI card, which you get from our circulation desk, our Lomies desk. You go and show them your student card, ask for a BCI card, and then you can walk over to McGill, take the Metro to the University of Montreal, and you can borrow books from their collections in person. Why would you do this instead of Columbo? You're allowed 3 books at a time. So say you go in and you need that 1 book on law and constitutions or something. And when you're in the section, there's 2 other books on the shelf, because we shelve by subject, all academic libraries do. And you can get out those 3 books that we don't have. This is also good if you are maybe writing something at the last minute and it's a Friday and you know McGill has a book. This is going to be faster than waiting for Columbo. And just a tip, so we're mostly an English university. We have books in French. They don't go out as much as our English books. The opposite is true at the French universities. So if a book is out at McGill, an English book is out at McGill and Concordia, it might be on the shelf at the University of Montreal. So it's worth thinking about. Okay, now I'm going to talk about sources. So I'm pivoting a little bit away from stuff you already know about to stuff you need to find yourself. So I just wanted to talk about 3 kinds of sources today, because I'm going to show you some things in the subject guide. So when I talk about government sources, I'm talking about publications, websites, or statistics written and published by governments. So the government is the publisher and they're in charge of their content. Non-government publications, and this is a very big category, but I'm saying it's publications and websites written and published by international organizations, non-governmental organizations, independent institutions, news agencies, newspapers, other media organizations. So you can see that's a lot of stuff. And then an important focus for your papers is scholarly or academic sources. So books and journal articles written by academic researchers affiliated with universities and colleges or other academic institutions, usually having gone through the peer review process. And these are books published by university presses and articles published in academic journals. So when I say peer review, just a little review on that, what that means. So peer review means I'm a scholar in Israel studies, and I've written a brand new journal article. I submit it to the Israel Studies Journal, and I want it published. There are a panel of experts, also experts in Israel Studies, who work for that journal. That's the peer review panel. They don't know who I am, I don't know who they are, to make it fair. They review the article for its content, to make sure I've proven my points, to back up my points with citations. Are there things that need adjustments? Maybe they come back and say, you need to change this and this to make your argument clearer. I do that, I resubmit it to them. They say, okay, this is good research, we're gonna publish it. They publish it in the academic journal. That's the peer review process. It is a lot slower than what I just said. It sometimes takes months and months and months of back and forth. That's essentially what we say when we mean peer-reviewed journals. Okay, I want to talk for a minute about scholarly, non-scholarly sources. I'm just going to go to the subject guide that I've set up, because I put some links in there that I think are going to be helpful. So the subject guide I'm going to, all of our subject guides are under help and how-to, subject and course guides. And then under social sciences, Professional Librarian, there's a smiling face. And then under course guides, Poly 322. And this is the short URL I showed you. It's really big, but it's hard to see. Okay, so government sources. So I've broken down some of the government sources that I think are going to be useful to you when you're looking into political parties. So looking at the government of Israel specifically and the websites that are available with English information on them. So basically looking at the breakdown of the government, the factional and government makeup of the Knesset. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. The currently functioning groups in the 20th Knesset, the electoral system, and then they have the elections results from 1949 to 2015, which was when the last election took place, online and available to you. There's also parties, lists, factions, and movements, describing the differences between these groups. And I've included here the statistical abstract of Israel, because they have a government and local authorities section that's from the Israel Central Bureau of Statistics, and they have some interesting electoral statistics in there. Here. So we have the currently sitting parties and who they're led by. So if we go to sort of the ruling party here. We have a short description of the party and the different and the different sittings that they've had and their different representatives. There's also some linked information here, current information about the party. This is a limited amount of information, but it's good to get you started. And it's all official government information because it's from the official government website. Okay, so they have their website. And one thing I wanted to point out, because I'm going to show you in a couple of slides, something about sort of power searching in Google. But the .il is the domain that we're going to be working with for Israel. And there's a way to just narrow down on that domain so that you're just getting either official Israel government websites or websites from Israel specifically. Okay, so parliamentary groups in the current sitting. So again, we can go in here. And it just gives you sort of a starting place and their official website where you can get more information. And then usually a little bit of information about how the party was formed. So again, this is just to get you started, but it's always good to go for official information first. Now, I also wanted to talk about the non-government sources. So there's a few things in here that I think are interesting. The Israel Democracy Institute. is a non-government entity, although maybe not wholly non-government, but non-government in this case. And they have a section on parties and elections. These are all external websites, so I'm just hoping that they will. And so again, you can go in here and you can find sort of basic information about the political party that is functioning in Israel. So it'll give you some numbers. And this is a place, although not a scholarly source, where you might be able to cite and say this is a non-government source. Now just, again, a word. A lot of the tables here and a lot of the official government information, I've linked to the places where you can find things in English. Many of the tables, especially about the party platforms and candidates, are only available in Hebrew. So it depends how much you can read in Hebrew versus English, but that's what's available there. Okay, there's also a section at the National Library of Israel called Election Chronicles, and they have a lot of information about past elections. And they've put it together in sort of their own subject guide online. That's interesting. Okay, so elections economy and how the political parties sort of affect these things. And what they have in their collection, of course, the National Library of Israel collects everything published in Israel. I wanted to talk about advanced Google search really quickly, and I call it smarter Googling, which is always funny when you make sort of Google a verb. So I've set up this page just to show you really quickly. So they have searching here the same way we sort of think of searching in the library with an and or and a phrase search. So if you want to look up an exact phrase, and this is particularly good for the name of a political party, exact word or phrase, the name of the political party can go in there. Any of these words is an or, so you're saying this word or this word or this word or this word can appear on the same web page or appear in the same publication on a web page as the name of the party. So something like members, membership, leadership, party, elections, candidates, platform, all that kind of stuff can be ors. You can narrow it down to English, just depending, again, on your sort of language abilities. And then site or domain, and I have this in the subject guide, a little hard to see here, but it's .gov.il, our Government of Israel websites, and then .il are just Israel websites. And so that means, basically, instead of looking at all the web, you're just looking at the web, specifically from the Government of Israel or from Israel itself. This will help you narrow things down faster if you're looking for that sort of official government information or non-government information that exists on the web from these institutions. Okay, I also have linked here the Statesman's Yearbook from 2016. This is a reference source. And again, it's quite a nice source. It's an ebook, so you can access it from home. You just need to be logged in, use document externally. Now, what this contains are for 2016, basically everything about international organizations in each country of the world and how those countries' governments function. So we can find, there's a whole chapter on Israel. And I'm showing you the 2016 online because the 2017 is available in print only. It is in the library, but the 2016 is available online. And then you can download the whole chapter. So it gives you a nice overview. And dealing with a small page here. Key historical events, and this is a reference source produced. It's not peer reviewed, but it's produced by an academic publisher. And gives you a quick overview of some of the basics, and there is makeup of the government, and there's things in here about the various political parties that are currently represented. Okay, so this is good, reliable information as well. So that's the Statesman's Yearbook. One of the other spots I wanted to show you as a non-government source and a non-academic source, but still fairly useful when you're trying to get background information, are newspapers. So there's news content here from outside the US and Canada in multiple languages. The database is called International News Stream. So basically it excludes just American and Canadian newspapers, but then has newspapers from all over the world. There are newspapers available in English, but in multiple languages, and you can set the languages up as well. So this is basically what it looks like. Again, you can put a political party as a phrase search, so in between two quotation marks. Israel with a little asterisk, a little star. What that does, it fills in the suffix of a word. So that looks up Israel, Israeli. And then I said government or politics, because you're interested in the government or politics, and you could definitely be more specific in here. You could add different specific parts of the government. There is a date range, so you can control, do I want this to be from the last 6 months, from the last 5 years, last 10 years? You can look specifically at newspapers, and then you have all of the languages available, and you can check off multiple languages. And what you're gonna get are current news stories, essentially, from newspapers around the world. So again, this can be helpful in identifying key people or identifying what a specific political party is working on. So they're working on specific policy, or their platforms may have been printed at the time of the election, which was in 2015, right? So it can be a nice primary source. It's a non-government source, it's a non-scholarly source, but newspapers are well worth looking at, especially in political science. So international news stream. Okay. Now I want to talk a little bit more about searching. Sort of been touching on searching, showing you a couple of places to look. So combining keywords and searches. There's some tips that work across databases. So I just showed you a bunch of different, I showed you newspaper database, I mentioned the library catalog, the discovery search, and there are individual article databases that I'm also going to show you. And these rules apply to all of them. So and, when you put two search words with and in between them, all the books, articles, and publications in your search will have both words in the results, right? That makes sense. But what that means is it limits the amount of stuff you're gonna see. The more ands and words you put, the less stuff you're gonna get. Because you're saying all of these words have to be somewhere in the table of contents, in the title, in the subjects, things like that. So Israel like Kesset, it will find those two words. Yeah.
When it says and, is that like the words are in succession, or it's just that it can be found sporadically?
Not in succession. They don't have to be together. They can be anywhere, like the word Israel could be in the title of the book, but Knesset could be in the table of contents. But as long as they're both there, it's going to show you that result. Or, so is where you come up with your synonyms. And you always want to brainstorm, you want to think about what are the alternate words or what are the synonyms for what I'm talking about. Because different authors are going to use varying words to describe the same phenomenon, right? So if I'm interested in immigration or emigration, when you search with or, all of the books, articles, and publications will have either word. So this is a good one to combine with and. Because you're saying, okay, I need everything on Israel, immigration or emigration. So Israel and immigration, Israel and emigration. And I'm going to show you this in action so it makes more sense. If you want the words together, which is what you're talking about, you put them in quotation marks, like I was showing you the titles. This is a phrase search. So this will only find results with that particular phrase. And it can be a bunch of words, it can be a title as I was showing you, or it just needs to be 2 or more words. So in this case, political parties. And this limits the amount of stuff you're going to find because it's only finding the term political parties, those 2 words together. And then the last one I mentioned before is the asterisk, so the little star. When you sort of cut off the word, like democracy for instance, D-E-M-O-C-R-A with a star, that finds democracy, democracies, democratic, democratically, democratization. So then you don't have to put in a million ors, it's just going to find all of those suffix for you. So it's a way to sort of make your searching faster. Okay, so if I take a topic from your course outline here, the Israeli electoral and party system, you always need to break down a topic. When you're given a topic, you need to break it down into keywords. When you make up a topic, you also need to break it down into the keywords and key ideas to be able to search it properly. So Israeli is from our topic, so we're looking up Israel and Israeli. The electoral system, so we're talking about elections, electoral politics, voting, right? It's just that quick little 2-minute brainstorm to come up with how are people going to be talking about this particular issue. And then when we're talking about the party system, we're talking about political parties here, right? And so then if I was searching, this is the library catalog. And so if I was searching in the library catalog, I don't need to put all of this in here. When you're searching for books, I always start with books when I'm showing students search strategies because books are broader, right? Because you may have a book that's on electoral systems across the Middle East, right? And there's a chapter on Israel. So the book is big and broad. And so I can say Israel and elections or voting and parties, and now we'll pick up those things from either the title or the subjects and things like that. Now just a word on what I did here. So Israel with star, that looks up Israel, Israeli, and then I put in brackets, elect or voting, because I'm saying when you use an or this, so that's why we put them in brackets. So elect, we'll look up elections, etc. And then voting and parties. Okay? So that's fairly straightforward. Yeah.
If in that situation you don't put the brackets, would it do Israel, Israeli, and elections, or political parties and?
Yeah, if you don't use the brackets, you're going to get a lot more stuff because it's doing this or this or this. It sort of confuses the database a little bit when you say, no, I want these two things to be this or this. So yeah, it's the logic behind the database, right? So Israel and elections or Israel and voting. Basically, you need the brackets there too, so that you don't get 4,000 things because it's just pulling out every word. You're saying, do I want these two things to be together with this other idea of results? The changing face of parties and party systems, a study of Israel and India. So some of our keywords are in the title there, and some of them are in the description. And you can see here, there's a subject heading for political parties, Israel politics and government, India politics and government. The promise and challenge of party primary elections and comparative perspective, and Israel will be found somewhere in here. Okay. So political parties, Israel case studies. So what these subjects do, there's subjects attached to every book in the library, that's ebooks and print books. And the subjects focus in on how we organize the information. So that means if you were to click on one of these subjects, you're going to see all the books in the library with that particular subject attached to it. So Israel Politics and Government, 186 books. Israel Politics and Government, 20th Century, 17 books. So it's a way to narrow down quickly once you've done that broad search in the catalog. And one of the things I did in your help guide here, under scholarly sources and subject searching, is I provided you with a lot of subject headings from our catalog and I've linked them. That will help you with your particular topics. Okay, so political parties Israel, elections Israel, Israel history, 48 to 67. And so if you click on any of these, it's going to take you to that group of books that is attached to that particular subject. So a way to get there faster, essentially. So again, breaking your topic into keywords, Israel is a Jewish and democratic state. So you can see I just broke down and brainstormed state, government, Government Nation. And this is the advanced search in the library catalog, just clicking on advanced search. So again, I've grouped government or state or nation in brackets, and then the rest are just and. They're combining them with and. And so again, combining these, my last search found me 23 books, and this one found me 42 books, right? So probably within these books, you're going to be able to find something that's going to help you with your particular paper. Not all ebooks are created equal. I say that because some of them are lovely, like this is a Springer ebook, so when you click on it, all of the separate chapters are PDFs. You can save them to your USB, key, print them out, it's wonderful. Sometimes the books are only readable on the screen. It's just what the publisher wants to do, okay? But they're all accessible from home as long as you're logged in. And most of the books, as I said, will have these subject headings attached to them. Okay, so if you're writing about Zionism in Israel, there's a subject heading for that as well. Okay, so you find a good book on your topic, you look through the subject headings, you're going to find a couple of more books on that subject, and there's 4 books there. That could be helpful, okay, to give you a nice solid base to go from. So more scholarly sources, we've gone through books. Now I wanted to talk about journal article searching. So in your help guide, I've listed several different journal article databases. I'm going to start with Political Science Complete because it's the political science database and it's full of political science journals. Why use this instead of the discovery search? You're going to be able to focus in here much faster and get to what you want. This database, because it's political science focused, also has a thesaurus of political science subject terms. It's attaching to all the articles the way the library catalog attaches them to books. So then you can narrow down to those political science specific terms. So I'm going to go in and actually do a search. So just go back to your course guide. Bear with me. Just a few clicks. Okay, so Political Science Complete. And there's a few things I wanted to show you in here that I think might prove helpful. So sometimes it will, as you're typing, it'll say, did you mean this? Sometimes you don't mean that and you can just ignore it. So I'm going to put a little star at the end, so again, it looks like Israel, Israeli. And I'm just combining my keywords with and the way we did before. And so this is a very, very general search, so that'll look up politics, political. That was meant to be ignored. So if you're going to write about the history of the Knesset, so we have 209 search results. The first thing you want to do is narrow down to scholarly or peer reviewed. This knocks out things that are not peer reviewed because there will always, so now we're down to 170, there will always be, sources in there that are maybe written by journalists, that are maybe from magazines that haven't gone through the peer review process, so you want to narrow down quickly using those limiting options. So you can see journal articles are much more specific. They take 15 to 30 pages and they write about one specific issue. This is why I say starting your search with books is a good idea because you can get a broad overview of the topic, right? Especially if your topic's really big, you're looking at one specific government or the way a government functions or something that happened in history. And those books and those, as you go through them, even the subject keywords on the books are going to give you an idea of how to make your search a little bit more narrow once you get into the more specific journal articles. So you can see here it's pulling out my subjects, political parties, Israel, politics and government, and showing me things that might be useful. In here are the subjects, again, just the way they are in the library catalog. And if I click on more, this shows me how many of these subjects are attached to these particular articles in this political science database. So 138 of these articles mention Israel as a subject. So if I click on these, political parties, Israel politics and government from 1993 to present, I'm looking at democracy, political campaigns, coalition governments, it just depends. Again, what you brainstorm, what particular aspect of your topic you're interested in. Political candidates, political systems. Any of these that you check off and do update, it adds them with and. So it's going to narrow down your search even more. These are particular subjects that are attached to these articles. So we're down to 145. Okay? Now, there are a couple of things that you can do in here under these selective fields. So fields are a way of searching sort of more intensely within the results that you have. So in terms of geography, for instance, so we have a country here. You can look at it as a geographic term. Now, this is one that I always recommend if you're looking at something to do with the United States, because many of these authors are going to be from the United States, and so it'll say in their author affiliation that they're from the USA, and that will pick that up. So even if the article is not about the USA, you use it as a keyword, it's going to pick it up and say this is about the USA. Israel, the same. So if these particular authors are maybe not writing about Israel but are from Israel, they might pick that up. So if you narrow it down to a geographic term, if you find you're getting too much stuff and it's not relevant, if you use the country as a geographic term, it will narrow it down considerably to just looking at when an author has listed Israel as the geographic term. So this will have pros and cons, and with the US, you definitely want to do it. Or, yeah, so now we're down to 112, right? So it's knocked out some things that maybe aren't so relevant. One of the other things you can do in here, I'm actually gonna do a new search, is there is an option for something called company entity. And company entity looks at entities that are non-commercial, because sometimes it's companies, sometimes it's not, but political parties. So if a political party is mentioned in the subjects, elections. So we do that company entity. It's going to pick up where that political party is mentioned, political party Israel. Okay, so that's a way to just look at when it's referring to that particular political party. It's company entity. Now, I just wanted to talk about access really, really quickly. So, PDF full text here, that's great. Download it, you can save it, wonderful. Find it at Concordia. Again, we'll pop open those options. So in a lot of cases, you're going to be able to get straight to the article. And in some cases, you're not going to be able to. And this is what I was talking about before. So search for the journal and library catalog. It's going to look at the Middle East Journal. Okay, we want the one that says electronic resource, because we want to see if it's online. And then it's available in a bunch of different places. Why is this? Sometimes the archive is in one place, the current stuff is in another place. So you always want to pay attention to the dates. So you can see this is available from 88, 2009, 1947 to 2013 in JSTOR. And so when you're going at it like this, you know you're just in the journal. So you still need all this information from here. You need volume 71, number 2 from 2017. So this looks like it's 2009- present, so 2017 will be in there. Okay, go back. Volume 71, number 2 here, yeah,
With Project Muse,
yeah.
do you know how to get PDF from Project Muse? Because a lot of times they just have just the website.
If you're logged in to Concordia, you're on campus or you're off campus and you're logged in, and you go through Find It at Concordia through Project Muse, you should have all the PDFs available. If you're hitting Project Muse and you're going through Find It at Concordia, or you're going through our resources, and you're not getting PDFs, it could be that we just aren't subscribed to that particular thing within Project Muse. Because Project Muse is a database, the same as all of our other databases, and some of the stuff we have and some of the stuff we don't. So it really depends, but if you come across something that you think, do we have this? You can ask us, like come on chat, send us an email and say, do you subscribe to this? And we may be able to tell you the path to go through from there. Because different databases have different weird things about them where you're like, you hit a wall and you're like, I should be able to get this. And you probably should be able to, and we can figure out how. Okay? And so in this case, here's your PDF. Now, I wanted to show you a couple of other things. So that was Political Science Complete. There's also two other databases that I've mentioned here, which I think for your purposes are worth knowing about. So a lot of your topics have to do with history, have to do with the historical development of something. And so Political Science Complete is poli-sci focused, historical abstracts is history focused. And you can also use the historical period option in the advanced search to search for articles about a specific time period. So when I click on historical abstracts, you're going to see right away, it looks exactly the same as Political Science Complete. This is because it's an EBSCO database. We have many EBSCO, we have like 60 EBSCO databases, but they're all different. And they're all working from a different group of journals. So this particular EBSCO database, Historical Abstracts, is working from a group of history journals. And because it's doing that, it has this option here where you can do historical period. So it has era, BC or AD. So if you do era, you can look at the 19th century to the 20th century. And that means it's going to return articles that are about that time period. Not written in that time period, but about 1889 to, the end of the 20th century. You can also do specific years. And so if you switch to CE or AD, you can say just between 1948 and 1970. And again, these articles would be about that time period, not written in that time period. Okay, so that can help you when you want to focus in on a particular historical event. Otherwise, the database functions exactly the same as political science. Now, there is one other thing that you can do because of all these EBSCO databases. If you click on Choose Databases, it gives you all the EBSCO databases. Now, the caveat, do not search all of them at once. Do not search more than 3 at a time. Otherwise, you'll get millions of articles and you won't be able to do anything with them. They won't be relevant. They won't be ranked properly, right? But you could do 2 at once. You could do historical abstracts and political science complete, so you're getting the history journals and the political science journals. Now, once you pick these 2 and you're searching in both, some of your options go away. So that historical period I just showed you, you won't be able to do that because you're searching in both and political science complete doesn't have a historical period option. But it does split up on the left-hand side. I'm not going to go into that because I'm going to show you one other thing. But it splits up. You can see, oh, I just want to see the articles from historical abstracts, or I just want to see them from political science complete, and you can see how many are being returned for both topics. Okay? So that's something you can do in EBSCO specifically. The other database, which I'm sure you're familiar with, is JSTOR. So JSTOR, I wanted to point out, again, it's great for historical articles because JSTOR is an archive. So the way JSTOR works, it's an archive of all digitized journals. They're all e-journals, they're all PDFs, you can get them all online. But more often than not, when you're searching in JSTOR, you're not getting the current 5 years of that journal because the current 5 years are in a different database. So this is why, maybe you're familiar with JSTOR, you've used it before, it's great, but don't use it as your primary database or your only database because you're missing current scholarship, right? And you may be missing some more specific journals in the area of political science. But JSTOR can be useful because it's multidisciplinary. And so I just wanted to show you the journal filter options, because not everybody sees them when you're in JSTOR. So, okay, so I'm going to do phrase search. All of the same. You can always add a search box. And that's all great. And then you can just say, I just want to see journal articles. Again, you can narrow by language. Publication date, I wouldn't worry about. But under journal filter, you can say, oh, I just want to see it from these particular subject areas. So from history, there's 325 titles in history. From Jewish studies, there's 58 titles. And from political science, there's 179. And then that's pushing out all the rest of the journals that aren't going to be as relevant, or that are going to be from a point of view that's not a historical point of view or a political science point of view. Okay, and then we can run our search. And when you do a search in JSTOR, you're always going to get a bunch of results. So 662. And you can see there's a mixture here: Jewish social studies, the Middle East journal. Your topics are the same as your subjects, so Zionism in this case is here, government cabinets. Okay. So again, it's a good way to narrow it down quickly, so you're not in this behemoth that is JSTOR. JSTOR is the largest database we have that anyone has. It's gigantic. There's a lot of stuff in there. So you want to use those options to narrow it down and just be looking at the scholarship that's going to be the most relevant to you. Okay. So I mean, everything I've shown you today has been basically start broad and then narrow down, because that's the best way to find what you're looking for. Because if you start way too specifically, you have a bunch of ands, you're saying, I want this and this and this and this, and they're all exact searches, you're going to get 10 articles. And of those 10 articles, maybe only 5 are going to be relevant, right? But you want to see what's out there, you want to see what's available, especially in something that's a bit more interdisciplinary, like looking at Israeli politics. You might be looking in history, you might be looking in Jewish studies and things like that. All right, just going to check back in what we're doing here. So everything I've shown you, I have all screenshots and things in the PowerPoint, which you can review later. One of the other things, check in and see, evaluate, and think critically about whether what you're looking at is scholarly. And you always have to do that even when you narrow down to peer review. You always have to evaluate what you're going to use in your paper to prove your argument. So what are the things that are going to help? How long is it? And I know, you get a 30-page article, you're like, I don't want to read 30 pages, but that's going to tell you that it's very likely an academic article. It's usually longer than 15 pages. If it's 4 pages long, it's maybe a review article, it's maybe written by a journalist. You want to look into that more. Who is it written by? Are they affiliated with an academic institution? If they are, it's usually gone through the peer review process. And the other thing is to look for footnotes, endnotes, bibliography, or reference list. This automatically should be there. Everybody needs to cite when they're writing an academic article or an academic book. And the thing that you can do is follow up these citations. If you find a really great book that was written in 2017, the author of that book has looked at all the scholarship on that particular issue up to probably 2016 when they wrote the book. And so if you go through their bibliography and look at the books and articles that they looked at, you can also form an argument on the basis of that evidence. These lists are super useful, and they've already done the work for you because they have a PhD in the topic, right? So you can go in and follow up on those. Finally, there's a lot on that subject guide. There's a lot of help available, okay? So I'm the librarian for these particular topics. There's a lot of help available in the library. So we have the chat, which I think I mentioned before, online. This is especially good when you're trying to just track something down, you have a citation for something, and you're like, I don't understand, do you have this? I tried to look for it. It's not available anywhere. You can let us know, and there it's me and my colleagues in our office. And then this is the desk. When you walk into Webster Library, we're all just sitting there, boom, 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 1, 2, 3. This is the librarian, okay? It doesn't necessarily have to be me that you talk to. You can come up and talk to anybody there. I've trained them in my areas, they've trained me in their areas. And I'm also going to send out this guide that I showed you all today and say there might be different students from this class looking for these particular things. Yeah?
Thank you, Misha. I just wanted to make sure that I add one important point that actually connects you with me in a previous life. And the resource, well, it's going to be very clear in a moment, and a resource that actually you were so instrumental in creating. But 5 years ago, we had a group of PhD students at the Department of Political Science from the Middle East, Lebanon, Syria, Israel, and they were very interested in finding newspapers that they can use for their dissertation researches. So we sat down with Michelle, I don't know if you remember, you came to the department, and we asked her, can you please go out and find newspaper archives from the region that students can use. And fast forward a few years, the library actually made a very important investment in acquiring the digitalized archives of the largest, and this is important, English language newspaper of Israel called the Jerusalem Post. Earlier it was called the Palestine Post. So we have access to all the PDFs, every single article that was published in this newspaper. So it's a very important source of information for anything that you whichever paper topic you choose. Going back to the start of the paper in the early 30s, and I think it comes up to about 5-6 years ago. So it's a very vast coverage. Whether you're choosing elections, parties, a war, the Balfour Declaration is too early. The paper wasn't in circulation yet. But it's a fantastic primary source for you to have access to, and all in PDFs. And you can use the same search strategies that Michelle so eloquently explained in terms of using brackets, quotation marks, and so forth. So my request to you, Michelle, well, first of all, it's a 5-year late thank you for making that resource possible. But if it's not too much work, would you mind to create maybe one more slide that we can add to just about the Jerusalem Post, which we can add to this, so that students would have at their ready disposal if they want to find that particular journal.
Yeah, I'll add it to the subject guide when I get back to my office, and I'll add it to the.
Thanks so much.
Yes, yeah, and you'll get current Jerusalem Post through International Newsstream, but yeah, for the archive, I'll link to where you can go directly to the archive. Okay. Yeah.
So after this presentation, will you be able to send us like links to like some of the things that we discussed?
Yeah, so everything is available in the subject guide. I'm gonna send the links to your professor. So the workshop slides are going to be right here. And all the links and everything I talked about are right here. And I'm going to add the Jerusalem Post stuff here. And it is all available. Let me just go back to my opening slide here. So this is my shortened URL to get to that website. Okay, so it'll all be there. And I think, I'm not sure if you have Moodle.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'll send the link and then it can be linked through Moodle.
Thank
so
you.
You'll have access to everything. One other thing, I'm also available. I said you can come to the desk. You can also set up an appointment with me. So if you want to come in and talk about sources and how to find them, my information is just in the subject guide there. Michelle.lake, Michelle with 2 L's, Lake with 1 L, at concordia.ca. Okay, and you can email me, we can set up an appointment, you can come in and we can talk one-on-one about your particular topic and where to look for things if some of the stuff I showed you today doesn't work out or you're just not sure where to go. Okay, I'm happy to